So glad you're here with me. We are talking about what to do in the moment when a child is completely defiant. Client of mine had an episode that happened yesterday, and I want to use it as an example of things that she did really well and maybe things that she might want to consider and tweak. But I really want to invite you to look at how would you handle it? What can you learn from this? And what kind of tools do you want to take away? So my client's been doing really some great work with their kids and, still not perfect as none of us are. And yesterday it was a situation where her youngest was just like, "Nope, I don't want to drive to go pick up my brother. Don't feel like it." Even though they've done it all along, this is not out of the blue, not out of the ordinary. So here's what I really like that her mom did. The first things first is she had already given her notice, and this is really important, especially if you have a strong-willed child, because strong kids often tend to be really creative and they get really immersed in what they're doing. And so if you are suddenly like, "Oh, we're going," that can immediately put them on edge where they dig their heels in. But she didn't do that. She definitely gave her notice. The second thing I really liked is that when she started to push back, that she acknowledged it. And something that I really it's not to spend a lot of time in it, but to say, "Hey, I can see that you don't wanna go. Sometimes I don't feel like it either, and yet we're going." And so to really make it you've acknowledged their feelings, but in this situation, and we're going. Being really, really clear where we're headed. The next thing, that can be really useful in that moment is to use a you or me kind of thing, a you or me kind of choice, which would look like, "Hey, do you wanna open the door or do you want me to open the door? Do you wanna walk there or do you want me to pick you up and take you there?" Which obviously only works for younger kids, but still, it's a choice. But again, it's a very limited choice, and if they start to, balk and say whatever, it's like, "Okay, I'm gonna pick you up then," and off you go. The next thing I really liked is she invited a conversation in the car, and they've got a really strong relationship, and so this makes it so much easier to do. They've put a lot of things in practice in order to have this happen, which yay them. So, but what part she invited the conversation and she was curious about because she said, "I think it kind of worked. I think I'm onto something." And I think she is. The part she's onto is to invite more conversation that can actually drop and connect with your child. So what do I mean by this? Kids are amazing observers, but their interpretation skills often is lacking. Often what we think they're getting as a lesson, they might not be getting at all. And so that's why it's really important to be able to dialogue and um, check in, basically. So what she said is she said something like, "Hey, like when you make it difficult for me getting to the car, I sometimes feel like you don't love me." And she's like, "Oh no, mommy, I totally love you." So I think this is where I want to stop and see if there's a piece that we can refine even more. Something that I am cautious about with strong-willed kids in particular is to connect love to a specific behavior. Two reasons. One, doing this can really foster a people-pleasing kind of personality. I'm a recovering people pleaser, so I probably am more careful with this than others might be. So it might be like, well, is that always the case, right? So do I always have to do what the other person needs me to do? And that means love. Well, what if that means that you are really ill and you feel sick? Does it mean you don't share that then? I just don't want it to go too far and get too extreme. The second thing that I think is really especially important in this case, strong-willed kids, stubborn kids can sometimes start to use it to manipulate. Here's what it looks like. So let's say the next day she does make it easy on her mom and she's like, "Hey, mommy, I made it so easy for you to get into the car. This means I love you so much. And if you loved me, you would buy me a double scoop ice cream cone. That would make my life easier." This is often where I've seen strong-willed kids go with their logic, and you can say, "Well, that doesn't make any sense, that's why it's so important to be so clear with them. So another suggestion here is that Let's say the following day, she did get into the car and said about the love thing. The cool thing is you can always go back to the conversation if you have an open, communicative relationship. So I'd be like, hey, you know what? I was actually thinking about that, and it's not love. I do know you love me. Sometimes it looks different than that maybe looks different to you than to me. But what I really was thinking about was this is about teamwork. That when you make my life easier, it helps the whole family as a team to work together to make our life easier. And so, for instance, when I asked daddy to make dinner, because I'm coming home late, if he just said, nope, not going to do it, don't feel like it today, that doesn't help the team. That doesn't help us all get to bed on time. If he said, oh my gosh, I forgot to do laundry, can you do it? And, I did it. Well, that helps him too. It also helps because we work together as a team. So mommy and daddy can work, that we can bring more money in so we can go on vacations and pay for extracurriculars and schooling and things like that. Then I would start that dialogue. And then on the moments where she wasn't being playing team player, I might say, "Hey, is this helping our family as a team?" And I would just wait. How does this land for you? Do you have suggestions that have worked for you? What can you take away from this? I would love to hear from you either in the comment section below. And I always appreciate a thumbs up for these videos. And if you haven't heard lately, thank you for all you do day in, day out as your child's parent. It is a marathon, not a sprint, and you are doing it. If you haven't yet joined the Stubborn Child Solutions Facebook group, I invite you to come on over and join me there. I would love to connect with you and love to support you further. Take care now. Bye bye.